Hey y'all, my name is Tanny and I love to cook. Today I'm going to show you a video of my first couple of times trying to break down a whole beef tenderloin. So this is the cut of beef that makes filet mignons, Chateaubriand, and I'm buying it here, and you want to make sure that you get USDA choice. You don't want to get a lower cut. The higher cut is prime, and I've never seen it in my local grocery stores. Prime whole beef tenderloin, but I'm sure you could order it from a butcher or a specialty shop. So what I'm doing here is I took it out the package and drained it, and now I'm just looking at it, looking at all of the silver skin and fat that has to be cut off in order to make the pretty little beautiful filet mignon steaks and roasts. So I really don't know how to attack the beast, but what I'm doing is taking a paring knife and cutting off the obvious fat and silver skin. I believe the best knife for this job will be a flexible boning knife that you use to fillet fish, but I don't own one of those yet. But I believe I've seen some Japanese ones that I probably will buy this year. So here I am noticing the side chain meat. You can actually separate this much of it with your hands as you see me doing, and then when the fat part comes, use your knife to cut that. This chain meat is not trash. It is a lot of fat, but it is also meat attached, so people use this to grind up meat sometimes for their pet, or to make burgers, or to make a beef saute meat with vegetables. So it definitely is not trash. It's just not the prize meat of the filet mignon or beef tenderloin roast. And I've noticed there's a lot of different names for the cuts of meat that you get from a whole beef tenderloin. A lot of the different names depend on the country you're from, whether it's France or Brazil or the US. So if you're familiar with some of the names of the cuts that I haven't mentioned, be sure to leave that down in the comments for me so I can read about it and learn more. I bought this during the holiday season of 2020, December and January 2021. So because I saw it on sale during the holiday time at my grocery store, so I plan on buying more this coming holiday season. So I'm just continuing to cut the chain meat off. You'll notice the whole piece of beef tenderloin wasn't an even piece of meat from end to end. So we're going to be cutting off bits and pieces to make it even. So now it's starting to look a little bit more like something. I got the chain off, and now I'm just cutting off the fat on the other side. And you want to take your time and just make sure you get off the fat and the silver skin and not the actual meat. We want to save that for our steaks and roast. So the silver skin is easier to remove if you cut a piece off the end and lift it up and use your knife to shimmy underneath it to get just the silver skin off and very little of the meat, if any. And you'll notice I'm flipping it over to see the next place to make my cut. I do that many times in this video. But this piece looks like it's coming off nicely. And as the silver skin comes off, more of the meat is exposed and it's starting to look like steaks. So this piece here in my hand is what I'm going to look at next. I'm cutting some of the fat and silver skin off of it as I decide what I'm going to do with it. So you can cut this whole thing into different pieces, cut steaks, or you can fold it and tie it and roast the whole beef tenderloin. So I'm trying to decide what do I want to do. So my first choice, you can see, is to just try to fold it all in together to make it kind of symmetrical. And then use my kitchen twine to tie it around lengthwise, and then wrap the string along each side and just cut it once at the end. This string tie-in is not ideal. I looked at several videos and I didn't get a specific technique. I just did the best that I could. And I'm not completely satisfied because it's not symmetrical, so I imagined myself cutting this into steaks and I didn't think it would exactly work. So you'll see me trying to tie this string, and the meat is so tender, it's easy to see when you're cutting it that it definitely does need to be tied to help it hold its shape. So that definitely is something you'll want to invest in, the twine and figuring out the best way to tie it. Now you can see I'm picking up and dropping down the meat. The ties aren't even, but it looks okay. I decided to take the ties off though. I cut the butt or the heel off to be a separate roast. I think I'll be able to get a better presentation if I cut the tail off and the tenderloin tip from the other end. So that's what I'm doing here. So the Chateaubriand part is in the center, and then the filet mignon roasts or steaks are on either side of the center piece. And so that's what I'm cutting off here. This end piece is a tail tip, so I'm not cutting off too much. I'll use that in a stir fry. So I'm taking a nice clean piece of twine and I'm just tying up the center piece. And this seems to be much easier because the meat is even size. Now my tie-in strings is not even, but I know the meat will be delicious even if the string isn't perfect this first time. You'll notice I tied this leaving the string whole so that I wouldn't run into a case where I had a short piece of string like I did previously. It's a mess. I kind of wish I went to culinary school so that I would learn the proper way to do this, or even worked in the butcher shop of a grocery store. I wanted to go to my grocery store and say, hey, can you show me how to do this, but don't charge me for it. I just want to watch you 1 or 2 good times. I took the string off again. I know I could get this right. I'm going to try. I'm going to try my best. This is my 3rd attempt, I believe. It seems like I get a little bit better each time, which is the goal in life, right? It's not pretty, but it is a little bit tighter and more symmetrical, I think. So I'm pulling the string down to make it tighter to help the tenderloin roast hold its shape. So when I'm satisfied with what I've done, I'm tying the twine in off at the end and then cutting it. It's not perfect, but it's not bad for my first job, I would say. Now, what to do with this cut of meat? I could roast it whole, but I think I can get a few steaks out of it. The tail meat, I'm gonna try to make a tenderloin tip, make it into an actual steak by pressing it down. It's not perfect in size and it's not tied, but it seems like it'll be okay. This tail, I'm going to start off trying the same thing. But then I decided, yeah, this probably isn't going to work and fry well as a steak. That's not cute at all. So instead what I'm going to do is just take my knife and slice it into pieces for a stir fry. That's my go-to for beef anyway. So now I'm cutting my heel, I'm cutting the ends off. The tips, tenderloin tips, stir fry for myself and my dog. I know, I gave my dog some expensive cuts of meat. So I'm cutting my heel into 2 pieces to make steaks, and that's really the benefit of buying the tenderloin whole, is that even though it is an expensive cut of meat, I think the whole thing cost me between $120 and $160. I tried it a couple of times with a couple of different rows, but it would have been much more expensive if I just bought the individual filet mignons already cut by the butcher, or a whole tenderloin roast that was already cleaned. So I saved a lot of money by cutting off the fat and silver skin and preparing it myself. So here I'm just going to tie up these steaks afterwards to help them hold their shape during the cooking process in the pan. And there'll be a part 2 of this video showing you the different preparations I use to cook this meat. This is just breaking down, which is kind of important to know in order to get a good result. You want to make sure that the twine you use is food quality, food grade, made to be used and prepared with your food. If it's not, if it's covered in plastic or something like that, you'll definitely be able to tell when you heat it up, so that's not what you want to do. So yeah, there's my wrapped tenderloin roast, my tenderloin steaks in the back, and then my tenderloin tips that I've cut to use in a stir fry or to grind up. This is the actual chain that is fatty. I'm going to cut as much meat off of that as I can. I'm not really going to do anything with the fat, although you could saute it and render in a pan to do something with the beef fat as well. But yeah, this was my first attempt. So if you've broken down a whole beef tenderloin, leave me a comment below and give me some tips on how I can do this better. Thank you for watching my video.